Hello there. Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more worked up than Anakin Skywalker at a children's party.
Welcome to episode number 13. I'm Corey Winter, and as always, I'm joined by my nerdy brother Josh Winter and our geeky friend Jason Summer.
Hello!
In this episode...
Hello!
All right. In this episode, we are asking and debating the question, is nostalgia ruining cinema? We'll also be doing a quick dive into the news, where we will be discussing Marvel's return to Comic-Con, John Williams retiring, Chris Hemsworth's butt, and some actual tech news.
Woo!
We'll also be doing full spoiler reviews of the entire Obi-Wan Kenobi series and episode 8 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And before we get into it, as a reminder, please share the show with your friends and family, on social media, with your neighbors. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review.
It's not hard to do. You just tell people about it. You go in, click a star, hopefully the 5th one. Yeah, just do it. It's not hard.
Speaking of reviews, I do want to give some shout outs to some of our listeners who actually have gone and given us some reviews. We just want to take a moment to highlight our fantastic listeners that are actually listening to us and giving us 5-star reviews. We have 2 new 5-star reviews with actual comments.
Ooh.
So I want to read them real quick. From Nerd Runner 22.
I like that.
Awesome name.
Eat, sleep, nerd, and enjoy. We need to change our name of our podcast. Nerd Runner 22 says, there isn't a better way to get your weekly dose of nerdy news and geeky joy than listening to the Eat, Sleep, Nerd podcast. The trio of geeky hosts give an upbeat and fun overview of the top news from the week, contributing their own unique perspectives and experiences to the conversations.
Wow.
We also have another one from Baby Batman. The review says, you guys are doing great. Good job, Jason and Winter Brothers. Also, Jason, I just have to say, you know that you stole my mom's favorite superhero.
Thank
you.
Jason,
I have no idea.
Do we know who
Superman can be shared. It does not... he does not belong to one person. It's okay. We can share Superman together.
So thank you, Nerd Runner 22 and Baby Batman. You guys are awesome. Jason.
Yeah.
Josh. How you doing?
Well, first of all, Corey, take a breath, man. You're going to be okay.
I've had a lot of coffee.
Woo!
I have my giant Spider-Man cup right here, and it's empty now.
Okay. Wow.
Corey's just vibrating into the microphone.
He's trying to pick things up, and he's just phasing through it.
I was gonna say he's like one cup away from phasing out of the show.
So Josh, I think we skipped you last time on the update, so I think you should lead us.
My enterprise model that I've been working on is almost done.
Oh, okay.
I bought the light kit that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, strung LEDs or whatever, so you can push a button, the nacelles light up and the turbines and all the running lights. Like it's really cool. And it's almost done. However, I had to make like adjustments to the lighting system so that it actually fits. Like it's from the same company, so you'd think it would be like pretty good to go right out of the box. It's not. I had to rearrange the order of lights and the biggest issue is the actual cabling, like the light power line or whatever, is way too thick because it has to go through the parts of the ship to get to the battery pack, and it doesn't. They should have made it like a much smaller gauge.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. The only other thing is I did go see Top Gun one more time.
Because
I did, well, I mean,
I'm gonna go see it a third time. So I mean,
yeah, I took a lady friend out on Friday, and she said that she had not seen a movie in about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And I said, well, there's really only one movie that will do for your return to cinema. And she also thought it was great. So,
Jason, have you seen it yet?
No, I'm seeing it because I've been very involved in
whatever. But
so, So this weekend coming up, me and my brother are taking my nephew and my oldest niece to go see it. So that's the plan.
It is returning to IMAX officially. So
right, I saw that. Yes,
I'm assuming they're trying to break a record. It's every time something gets re-released that fast, I just have to assume.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think they counted on it being popular, just not this popular.
Honestly, I think they're redoing it in IMAX because July 4th is coming up.
Ooh,
that's going to be a good movie to go see on IMAX in July 4th weekend. Yeah.
It's very America.
Yeah.
So I get it. What
about you, Jason? What have you been doing this week?
It's unfortunately I've not been able to do much in the way of geekdom or nerdy activities. Not unfortunately. I've been doing what I love. Corey's got a big L up on his forehead, jerk.
Loser.
No, I've been doing. We've been. I've got 2 plays that I'm working on.
That's true. That's true.
Been in rehearsals for the Shakespeare play, and then we had our second run, which ends today, which is Saturday for those when you're listening on when this comes out. I'm sorry, which is Sunday for our last show is today for the other play that I'm in. So been pretty busy with that.
Now I would argue, Jason, that theaterdom is inherently kind of nerdy. So I would say that you're living your best nerd life, man.
You have been the nerdiest of us recently.
Yeah, I would say you're nerding harder than we are.
There's been a lot of time committed to that activity. One of the great things I love about theater is that it's also kind of a home and a refuge for a lot of people who feel like they're on kind of the fringes or the outsides of their social circles because they're also inherently nerdy or geeky. I've met a lot of people in this new theater that I'm working with that they have their own D&D podcast, Dungeons and Dragons. They host their Dungeons and Dragons campaigns once a week.
That's cool.
We've been talking all sorts of fringe sci-fi and nerd stuff in the downtime between rehearsals. So yeah, I think you have a valid point.
Yeah.
So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, gentlemen, let's dive into our geek dive topic of this episode. This is a hot
I've been
topic.
looking forward to this one. Yeah.
So the question that we're going to be asking ourselves today is nostalgia ruining cinema?
Yes. Next.
So there's that whole, everyone's been saying it. So there's the whole, everything is a remake nowadays. And I wanted to put it to the test. How true is that statement? Everything is a remake. So I did a geek dive in research mode, and I went and looked back at the top 50 box office making movies worldwide dating back to 2018. So I looked at the 2018 box office results, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 so far.
Okay.
And I was looking for properties, so whether they are movies or movies that have characters that originated roughly 20 years prior or more, that have gotten new entries or reemerged in some way, whether as reboots, sequels, reappearances, etc.
Okay, so the cutoff is 20-ish years.
20-ish years. There are a couple that are like 18 years, but I wanted to include them because they were noteworthy. And it's worth noting that some of these franchises have been consistently releasing new entries, such as Fast and Furious and James Bond. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and include them because they did start more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't feel like that changes the argument. So yeah.
And this is not necessarily a nostalgia list because not all of these movies are wrapped around in nostalgia, especially for everybody. I have highlighted which ones are, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to include basically everything except for MCU movies because honestly, they have not really been around that long, even though we are getting consistent sequels and stuff. The MCU has not really been a thing for more than 20 years. It's been, 15 years? So,
yeah, 2008, right?
Yeah. And then also Fantastic Beasts is kind of a weird one. And there are a couple of weird ones. Fantastic Beasts I'm not including because it technically is a part of the Harry Potter franchise.
I want to include it. I want to include it because if Harry Potter didn't exist, the franchise wouldn't exist.
That is true.
And
it's not in... Yeah.
Just to me, so let's be real. The Fantastic Beasts franchise is not very good. Okay. And if it was not preceded and built upon the Harry Potter universe, I don't think it would have gotten any sequels. Period. They were banking entirely on that name. So no, I think it counts.
That's true. So anyway, this actually came up because especially this year and the later half of last year, there have been a lot of movies that are using characters that we haven't seen in a long time. So in 2022 alone, I counted 13 movies, some that have come out already, some that are still coming out later this year. 13 movies that are using some characters or reviving of the franchises from more than 20 years ago. The notable ones are obviously Top Gun Maverick, which, hey, great movie, but it is relying heavily on nostalgia. The Scream movie, Lightyear, Jackass Forever, Death on the Nile, Jurassic World Dominion, Halloween Ends, Prey, which is a sequel to Predator, or I guess prequel. Who Framed Roger Rabbit 2? Yes, that is a thing.
Interesting.
Pinocchio, Creed 3, which is a spinoff or continuation of Rocky. Yep. Clerks 3, and Jeepers Creepers Reborn. So that's just 2022. 13 movies in 2022 that I've counted. There actually might be more. Last year, there were 15. The most notable ones were Spider-Man No Way Home, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Space Jam: A New Legacy, The Matrix Resurrections, and several more. I'm not going to list all of them, but you guys, if you guys are looking at the agenda, you can see them. Obviously, 2020 was a rough year for movies, but somehow there were still 5 that hit theaters that were nostalgia-esque. Bad Boys for Life being the most notable one. In 2019, there were 14. 14. Some of the most notable ones were Terminator Dark Fate, Toy Story 4, Jumanji: The Next Level, Men in Black International, and so on. And then my last year that I looked at, 2018, there were 10. Some of the notable ones including Incredibles 2, Creed 2, Ocean's 8, so on and so forth. So, what has happened? Is this a bad thing? Or is it bad that we're getting so many things that we have seen from our childhood and beyond? Or is it kind of nice that we're getting things that we're familiar with and being given new life?
So to me, it's a double-edged sword, right?
I was going to say precisely those words.
So I don't mind you cashing in on my childhood if you do it well.
Yeah.
When you were reading off that list, there was a shocking number of ones where I was like, that was garbage. That was terrible. That wasn't very good. I wish they hadn't made that. Looking at you, Matrix Resurrections. Looking at you. All right.
Yeah, so this really came to a tipping point for me last year because there were several noteworthy ones. Spider-Man No Way Home, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Space Jam: A New Legacy, and The Matrix Resurrections. Space Jam and Matrix were the two, why did you guys even do that? It was very obviously you guys were just trying to tap into nostalgia. Matrix Resurrections, what the heck happened to that movie? And then Space Jam was obviously just a cash in. That was a waste of time for everybody.
What year did Episode 7 come out?
2015.
That's what I was saying, 14, 15, something like that. To me, that's what started this whole cashing in on the nostalgia thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that was the moment where studios realized that they could kind of milk the nostalgia for money. Because before that, you'd get sequels. Like you said, even your list doesn't go past 2018. Because I think that's kind of around the time where it started really getting big.
Yeah. So I have noted here that Disney has been especially guilty. Just since 2018, I count at least 10 of these movies that are Disney, possibly a lot more, especially with how they've taken previously animated movies and made them live action. Since 2018, they have done live action adaptations of Dumbo, Lion King, Aladdin, Mulan,
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. That might have been before 2018. That's not on my list.
Still.
Oh, sorry.
I guarantee it's after 2015, though. So.
But yeah, so Disney especially has been banking on this whole nostalgia thing.
Now, to their credit, for the most part, the Disney ones are pretty good.
Yeah. Yes. So that is worth noting that just because we're calling out all these movies does not mean they were bad. I just think there is a slight issue in Hollywood, at least in my opinion, that we're relying too heavily on things that came existing things. I feel like Hollywood's kind of running out of new ideas.
I think what we have is a convergence of two extremely important aspects of what's going on in our world right now. Or in America, I guess, since we're discussing mostly American media. So what we have is probably one of the most influential generations on media and culture getting into positions of leadership and management in a lot of the production in entertainment companies. And that's going to be Generation X and the millennials. What you also have is the ability for technology to basically create anything and make it look realistic in media. So what you have, and because of media, I'm sorry, there's three things that are and because of media.
No way, there's more.
Streaming service. No. But wait, there's more. The third point is that because of streaming media and because we're able to put, and we were able to transfer all of these properties that we grew up with into essentially a library that we can tap into all the time, we now have access to things that we grew up with that we didn't used to have access to. And because of these three things, we are able to just go in and recreate our childhood. And that is what people are doing. Yeah. They're recreating their childhood. There's no need for nostalgia, for originality right now, because they're able to go back and essentially capitalize on things that they wanted to see when they were kids. So I think that that's a large part of what we're seeing right now. I think that goes back to Transformers. That goes back to the G.I. Joe that we had come out, the G.I. Joe movies. We've got new He-Man cartoons coming out. We've got the Ninja Turtles are constantly going into new movies. Yeah. These are a lot of properties that were in the mid to late 80s and early 90s. So I think if you look at some of these properties that we're looking at of sequels right now or continuation of these properties, their basis are going to be the mid, late 80s and early 90s is where they started. And that's going to be our generation.
Yeah, most of them that I have on here probably, I didn't actually count, I probably should have counted this. It seems like a lot of them are definitely originally from the 80s and early 90s. Yeah. So that definitely holds true.
Well, even Ewan McGregor was saying when he was making Obi-Wan Kenobi that the crew is made up almost entirely of the exact group of people that Jason is referring to. People that were born in the 80s, early 90s. They've grown up watching Star Wars and, to his point, his Star Wars movies, the prequels. And now they're super excited because they're getting to make a Star Wars movie, or in this case, a Star Wars show. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, again, I don't think it's inherently a bad thing as long as it's done correctly. But as our list here proves, Corey's list, I didn't do this, Corey's list proves, it's like a 50-50 split, being generous. To Jason's point, the technology, technology has fundamentally changed how we consume media. Mm-hmm. And that includes even retroactively, like Jason says. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about this before, like with the, and I don't remember if it actually made it to the show, but like there's a reason Law & Order ran for 20 seasons. People like knowing what they're getting into. Yeah. Fundamentally speaking, to the human race, new is scary. Yeah. We're not sure how to feel about new.
That is very true. Like, I have such a hard time committing to watching a new show. Yeah. Like, there is the whole, like, people that rewatch The Office dozens of times, and The Friends dozens of times. It's like, it's so hard to commit to a new show because you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Everybody has that comfort show. Yeah. And there's a reason that exists. There's a reason that's a thing. There's a reason that as soon as I said that, everyone said, yup. Like, it's because, like, new is scary. And if we look at the industry as what it is, a business, I can bank on people going to something familiar, even if it's not particularly good.
Yeah, I agree. There are people who love the Turtle movies, the Michael Bay Turtle movies, because they are the Turtles.
The it has nothing to do with quality.
So like Turtle movies. What?
Sorry, Ninja Turtles. Sorry. I mean, personally,
it's Michael Bay's little-known nature documentary, focusing on urban-based turtles.
Every time a turtle hatched on the beach, there was an explosion out of the shell. Slow motion, crawling out.
Okay, first off, I'd watch
some really attractive woman was helping them out of the...
No, you've sold it. I'm down. Yeah, when did tickets go live?
Right. No, but like, there was the original, you got the cartoon first. Well, see, the Ninja Turtle started off a comic,
Correct,
which then became a cartoon, which then there was the 1990 TMNT movie, which is my favorite Ninja Turtles movie.
Big animatronic suits.
And they had Jim Henson Muppet suits.
Yeah, no, that's what I was
puppeteering suits.
I said animatronic, but I meant the...
Yeah,
like,
you're right. You're right. In the
machinery.
facial features.
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, again. God, I hate saying that.
Do we have a tally board?
Every time, Josh. Every time.
Do we have a tally board? Josh has been right 83 times.
Anyway. So, but personally, like, I know that my personal preference and the way that I look at what I viewed and enjoyed in my life seriously influences whether or not I even wanted to watch the new Ninja Turtle movies by Michael Bay. And I didn't, because they weren't what I grew up with.
Sure.
They didn't look anything like it. I did not want to even give it a chance. And I recognize that. It has nothing to do with the director, it has nothing to do with what I thought the story would be. I'm like, these are not my turtles. Not interested.
My turtles.
I mean,
hashtag not my turtles.
But that's also a limitation I've imposed on myself. It has nothing to do with the quality of the work. I heard it wasn't good, Michael Bay's, but I'm just saying. Anyway.
So there's one little thing we have not talked about. Dead people. Jason, you want to talk about dead people and how this applies to nostalgia in cinema. Can you expand on that?
let's rephrase that. I found it an interesting connection. So one of the biggest, I think, negative aspects of our current media consumption is that we can go back and we can watch pretty much anything that ever existed. At the click of a mouse button, tap on a pad, whatever. And like we were just talking about earlier, we get caught up in watching The Office over and over and over, or we get caught up in watch, Law and Order because we knew what to expect. I am also guilty of this. I've got my own guilty pleasure shows that I watch over and over and over again.
Say Yes to the Dress.
What?
Say Yes to the Dress? Is that one of them?
I assume you would say yes to the dress.
No. Yeah, I see. There we go. I had no clue what you were even talking about. So I think that it stymies us in a few ways. One is that it keeps us from having to create new content or from being original, because we have everything that we already had. There's nothing to move on from. And like you were saying, Josh, it's difficult or scary to move on to something new. And I think that also applies to creating something new. If your needs are being met in one way or another, you're not going to change. And even if that applies to what you grew up watching, if it's there, like, why move on? So I think that keeps us as a culture from focusing on trying to be more original and capitalizing on things that are nostalgic. Having said that, the technology that Corey was bringing up was that Amazon has now come up with a way to make Alexa sound like any voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes dead people, people who have moved on from this existence. And while fascinating, I don't know if that's a really good thing. Now, maybe if you wanted to, use the voice of some well-known celebrity from, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that's kind of interesting. But one of the things that they pointed out in the article was that you can even include your dead relative's voice. And immediately, my first thought was, wow, that's very sweet. I wonder how that would impact a person's ability to grieve and to move on from the death of a loved one. And again, I think that taps into the same emotions that are tied to nostalgia. And so are we moving on? Are we allowing ourselves to move on from those things that are important and that are impactful in our lives? And are we limiting ourselves in our creativity? Are we limiting ourselves in growing and moving forward from, important points in our lives?
So Star Wars has used this technology a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, to me, we talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this previously. How about how, once James Earl Jones is gone, do we continue to get his voice as Darth Vader?
So I feel like, it's complicated because like he is the voice of Darth Vader, right?
Yeah,
and like his entire performance was auditory. You don't ever.
So I think
see
it becomes
James
a question.
Earl Jones.
Like, do you get a computerized version of his voice or a sound alike?
Yeah. Me, I would want to sound alike.
no.
Like I would want to sound alike.
So would I.
And it's I mean, like, okay, so again, sticking with Star Wars because we don't even have to go anywhere else. Disney is super guilty of this. Everyone has been talking about while they keep bringing back Luke Skywalker, young Luke Skywalker, middle-aged Luke Skywalker. While I think we agree that every time they do it, it looks better than the last time they did it. It's still
Should
there.
be Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like everyone is just kind of like, dude, like he's right there, and he's already got a Disney contract. Like even Mark Hamill said he wasn't totally against it. And I think he's a little biased because right now he's still getting paid for it. He shows up on set and they capture his performance, then have a stand-in do it, and then digitally mesh the two. So like I don't know. It's interesting. The one to me that sticks out is Rogue One. Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh, I guess yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did two. They did two.
I mean, yeah,
characters,
to be fair, they did it twice. But like see, the Leia thing to me was more of like a cameo, and like for some reason that to me is okay because it helps establish continuity, right? Because we know she's on that ship. So hey, we got to see her for 2 seconds. That's neat. It wasn't a major plot point. Tarkin was.
You know what they would have done prior to this technology is they just have somebody stand with their back to the camera.
Correct. Yeah.
And they just open the door. You'd be like, oh my God, it's Leia. And then they would go to black.
Yeah.
Right. Which I think, honestly, might have been a little more impactful.
I was going to say a little more dramatically effective. No, I get it. So I don't know. Like I think it becomes a question of ethics more than necessarily even nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. You are 100% right on that.
Because my biggest thing, and maybe we're at a point where this can start, I mean, it probably will start becoming a thing in actors and actresses' contracts. Do you release your likeness post-death? Like
that's a very good point.
Because that's my only thing with it is like, and forgive me, I can't remember the actor who played Tarkin. I can't remember his name. But he was a very highly respected traditional actor. The part that bothers me is I don't know if he would have been okay with it because he was one of those original respected actors that Lucas brought in to legitimize his little space opera.
Peter Cushing?
Yes. And so like, he, for example, I don't think Alec Guinness would have released his likeness because he wouldn't have been in control of his performance. And he considered himself a very, very, very good actor. And I think, I wonder if Peter Cushing would have been the same way. So I know his family released it, but
so going off on this same topic. So I know, Jason, you loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. Slight spoilers if you have not seen it. It's still a relatively new movie, so I do want to caution spoilers here. At the end of the movie, they bring back all of the original Ghostbusters, including Harold Ramis, who unfortunately has passed, but they still used his likeness in ghost form at the end of the movie. Now, how did you feel about that?
For me,
because like I asked because I feel like this instance was maybe slightly different because he never really got the closure to his character.
Yeah,
because he passed before he was able to reprise it one more time.
Yeah,
so I feel like maybe in this instance it was kind of okay because his family obviously did agree to it, and he didn't have a speaking role. Like it was really just his body
presence,
presence. Yeah.
For me, this movie was done right with nostalgia. I mean, first of all, they kind of admitted to the nostalgia when, Paul Rudd's character is, looking at, the YouTube video of footage from the movie, essentially as archival footage. But I think that I don't know. I mean, it is 100% nostalgia. It is 100% capitalizing on the popularity of Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But it was a fitting tribute as well to the original Ghostbusters, as well as to Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
And they sent him off pretty well. And I'm torn. I mean, it is precisely everything that we've been arguing against.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. Yeah.
But it was also really sweet, and I don't know. I mean, I guess there's an exception to every rule. For me, this one's it.
I also think it's very contextual. So, like, Ghostbusters was one of Harold Ramis's babies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was one of the fathers of that movie. Like, he didn't just act in it. Like,
he was one of the writers. Right?
He was, it was his baby. I think he would have wanted to be in it, especially if it was done well, which I think we all agree it was. To flip
and
it,
he was around long enough to have discussions, I'm certain, with writers about how they would want to approach.
Yeah, his passing, was
another
sudden.
sequel. So I'm pretty sure he had some input.
Yeah,
posthumously.
Yeah, and it's again on the flip side. In Star Wars, Peter Cushing, Alec Guinness, to them this was just a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they did it. They took their paycheck, and they could not have. I doubt they had any serious expectations for what it would end up meaning to a lot of people. So, again,
that's a very good point.
Not their passion project. No real involvement past the paycheck. Alec Guinness
especially
actively discouraged people from continuing to watch it.
Yeah. I was actually reading about that last night. That's actually pretty funny. I did not realize how against Star Wars he was.
Yeah, literally told a little kid.
He had no clue what he was doing.
Literally told a little kid that if you really liked his performance, he would never watch it again.
Like apparently he was the one that encouraged George Lucas to write off his character in the first movie because he hated doing it so much.
Uh-huh.
He thought it was just ridiculous, all of his lines and everything. So he encouraged Lucas to write him off and get killed in the first movie.
Interesting. Yeah, he came back for the next two.
Well, money talks, bro.
Yeah.
But that's my point, though. Is it wasn't a passion project. Like, it's not just like, man, I need to be in the next Star. It was a paycheck. And I mean, he's a great actor. He earned it. Like, he did well. But it was a paycheck. And so, I don't know. Like, we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent with the tech side, but I think it's worth talking because they're interlinked.
So I also want to point out, though, that and we've mentioned this movie many times on this podcast, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
That is an example of a completely original movie that is just struck everybody in a way that has a completely original movie that is just enraptured almost anybody who's seen it. And I think that not only is it a good story and not only is it a good movie, but it's so original that it's something that maybe we're thirsty for. Just an originality.
Yes.
You know, I think we're ready. We're like there, like we talk about the fear of seeing something new, but at the same time, there's the excitement of that fear. There's the excitement of seeing something different, and we're thirsty for it. And I think we may be hitting the pinnacle of this pendulum swing of nostalgia, and maybe we're going to start. I'm hoping maybe we'll start seeing more and more original content coming out in movies. Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
So not to just crap all over that, but it is worth noting that movie didn't make a lot of money.
Well, it was an art house piece. Like it makes sense, and it was not released in wide release. Like, it was a very limited release.
I'm just saying that
that's a good point.
While I
he has a valid point
and intellectually agree with you,
yes,
we have to keep remembering, like, the whole reason this is even a thing
is money,
is because it's a business.
Yeah, you're right.
Your entertainment.
Oh no! Dang it! I said it again.
Your entertainment is a business.
Yeah.
And again, I can count on making millions of dollars if I animate Tarkin's moldy butt and bring him back versus an original multiversal hopping story with
I have to start saying things in a different way. You have some valid points, Josh.
I was going to say, every time Jason says that Josh is right, he like loses a year off his life or something.
The Josh was right t-shirts will be on the store soon.
Yes, that's the story that we have. So we were talking about dead people and everything, and how dead people are being brought back for nostalgia reasons. How about we quickly talk about how live people are being brought back for nostalgia reasons? Specifically, I want to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home real quick.
Okay.
Because both, spoilers, Yeah, I mean, if you have not seen this movie, I don't know what's wrong with you, but obviously Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were brought back.
Correct.
For obviously, I mean, very nostalgia reasons. There was a story reason, like they never really got to wrap up their stories. Like it still made sense. Like it was a great thing to see them again. But they did bank on nostalgia to propel this movie to the heights that it achieved. Mm-hmm. So how'd you guys feel about that?
I was 100% on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I'm not ashamed to say that I will go for nostalgia. Again, that's the whole reason the machine works. Yeah. Like if everyone was against it, it wouldn't make all the money it was making. Like,
do you think it devalues what you're watching though?
Not inherently. If you do a crappy job of it, it does. What if they brought those two characters back and the movie just sucked butt? like what if it was just terrible? All right. Like we were happy with it because, like you said, it did wrap up their arcs. It did give emotional closure. It did. You know what I'm saying? What if it didn't?
Now, Corey, you're the Spider-Man guy of the three of us. I want to know what are your thoughts on this? How do you feel about it?
Mixed. Because, like Josh was saying, it was very awesome to see them again. Not really for nostalgia reasons, just because I wanted to see what their characters have been up to since we last saw them. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't go into it thinking, "Oh my god, it's so good to see Tobey Maguire again," just because I missed him. I'm thinking back to all those fun times I had watching the original movies. Like, that's not what I experienced watching it. I really enjoyed seeing what their characters have been up to from a story perspective. From a nostalgia perspective, honestly, it did kind of rub me the wrong way because it just felt like it didn't just feel like this, but it definitely felt like the reason they did it was to make more money for the movie, not the actors. The actors did it because they care about the characters, but it felt like Disney and Sony were doing it to make money. Because
they could have easily just had different versions of Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Which would have made actually more sense.
Yeah.
I know. We actually have stumbled onto a little bit of a cinematic conundrum. Because sometimes your multiversal doppelgangers look like you and sometimes they don't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I have questions.
Yeah. Like what? Yeah.
There's an inconsistency here.
I think the only reason why that worked is because of the fan appreciation
for what they did prior.
Exactly. There were a lot. I think people were always like, well, Tobey Maguire is always going to be my Spider-Man. You know, like Christopher Reeve will always be my Superman, you know, a lot of people felt Andrew Garfield didn't get the closure that he needed, you know, for his movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Like factually he didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. And there was a lot of discussion and there's a lot of fan appreciation for those two iterations of Spider-Man that lasted long after their presentations in cinema. And probably before. I mean, and this was before they started talking about doing this No Way Home movie. So I think without that, this movie would not have worked. Because everybody was happy to see those particular actors playing those particular versions of Spider-Man. It wouldn't have worked if they played different versions of their Spider-Man. Also,
and I was actually going to say, I mean, actually, going back to your point, if they had done a multiverse movie where Tom Holland was just playing multiple versions of Spider-Man, people would just be asking, well, why didn't you go get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire? So I guess it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, there's that. Also, there were a lot of memes come to life in that movie. Like the Peter Parker or the Spider-Man pointing at each other. Mm-hmm. You know, they worked in a lot of like fan service. Like it was like heavy on the fan service. Was it done right? Yeah, I think so. But in all fairness, I don't think that movie should have worked. It did, but I don't think it should have.
Yeah. All right. I mean, so that kind of takes us back full circle. So to the question, is nostalgia ruining cinema? Yay or nay?
If the industry gets to the point where this is all we have, then I would say yes.
Yeah.
I don't mind this being a huge portion of cinema. I don't mind this being like a leg of cinema, right? Like, because again, I mean, it's the reason the MCU works. We know what we're getting. All right. I know roughly what's going to happen. I'm going to see things that I'm comfortable with, familiar with. Again, there's a reason that model works. I don't want original ideas to languish, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, to Jason's point, Everything Everywhere All at Once was an amazing movie. I wish more people had seen it. They also didn't make it very easy to go see it. So I guess my plea would be that at least some portions of Hollywood get to a point where they're willing to support original ideas, to actually take a risk. Because every movie we've talked about that we've loved, almost every single one of them was a risk when they were first made. Star Wars bounced around 4 or 5 different production companies before Fox finally gave them an okay to try.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek wouldn't have been made if I Love Lucy hadn't agreed to pay for it, basically. That's a fun fact. You should look it up.
Back to the Future also bounced around a bunch of production companies before Universal agreed to it.
Yeah, all of these things. Yeah. The only reason Ghostbusters got made was because of who was making it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was the talent that was already attached. I don't know. Keep making the things I love, because I'll keep going to see them. I'll give you my money. But give me new things, too. It'll be okay.
All right, let's get into some nerdy news. We don't actually have too much to talk about today, but there are a couple of things we just want to shout out real quick. So we're just going to blast through some things. The first thing I want to talk about is Marvel Studios will actually be at Comic-Con this year. So we actually previously talked about on our podcast, episode number 11, how Marvel Studios was apparently skipping Comic-Con this year. Well, apparently that's not true. So Kevin Feige, he was at the press conference for Thor: Love and Thunder, and he said that Marvel Studios actually will be at Comic-Con this year. So, yay!
Well, what had happened is he had listened to our podcast where we discussed that.
We know for a fact that Kev is a listener.
Right.
What's up, Kev?
Thanks for listening, Kev. Glad that we had an influence.
And I do actually want to go on record and say I thought this was actually going to be the first year that they skipped. That's actually not true, apparently. They actually had been skipping the past couple of years because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Kind of like
that doesn't count. Everything shut down during the pandemic. Everything was weird.
Yeah, so like they actually skipped 2018 as well, but they were back in 2019. So they've been a little dodgy. So I do want to correct myself there. But they will be back this year. And related to that, Kevin Feige has said that we will be hearing about the next big saga of the MCU in the coming months.
I was just about to ask you.
So maybe we'll see the future of the MCU at Comic-Con this year.
Maybe. I mean, how long ago did we talk about that they was going to go to that retreat and talk about and work on the next 10 years of
like
Marvel?
6 episodes ago.
6 episodes ago? Yeah. Like so there's been time to hash that out. So maybe.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. They need to do that.
Maybe we've got it. Yeah.
They need to do that because, like, as fun as this is, the most relatable meme I've seen recently was every MCU movie post Endgame has felt like going back to do the side quests after you beat a game.
I saw that.
Like, it's like they're fine, they're fun, but I don't feel like it's going anywhere. And half the allure of Marvel was the teaser for the next big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the teasers that we had aren't really pointing at anything. They're just a teaser for the sake of a teaser. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we knew phases 1 through 3 were building up to Thanos in some way.
Yeah.
We didn't really know how until they announced.
Seems like they were still figuring it out too.
Yeah, probably. Too. But with this one, we don't really know what anything is.
Where is this going?
If it's leading to anything. There's a lot of speculation that it's leading to the Secret Wars.
Ooh.
Which would actually tie into all the multiverse stuff that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's just speculation.
We shall see.
We shall see. So hopefully in Comic-Con, Kevin Feige's going to show off some pretty cool stuff.
And when is Comic-Con?
I'm glad you asked. I had not prepared myself to answer that question. Comic-Con.
He's not glad you asked.
Comic-Con is actually coming up pretty soon. July 21st through July 24th.
Okay.
So about a month from this recording.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
Moving on to sad but happy news that John Williams has not really announced. He hasn't really said officially, but he's saying in interviews that he's likely done doing film compositions after Indiana Jones 5. So Indy 5 might be John Williams' last composition for movies.
That man has certainly earned a retirement.
Yeah. He's the sound of cinema. And he was for a long, long, long time. I guess you could argue Hans Zimmer is the new sound of cinema, but I mean, like it's again banking on nostalgia. Every movie I watched growing up that had like an impact on me was scored by John Williams.
Yeah.
Every single one.
There are times when like I would go watch a movie just because I heard that John Williams, or I found out that John Williams did a score, and I wanted to go.
And I mean, he's kind of slowed down. Like he doesn't do as much as he used to. But anytime Steven Spielberg does a movie, they like give him an adrenaline shot and roll him out and put him down in front of the piano. And
yeah, he is 90 years old now.
Yeah.
So he's definitely earned he's past earning his retirement. He says he's still going to be doing other musical compositions, like concertos and stuff he wants to do.
I mean, he's a musician. He'll do music for the rest of his life until he physically can't, you know?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I want to point out real quick is that I hear a lot of classical music snobs just dismiss composers of this era because all they do is movies. But I want to remind people and people who listen to classical music that most of those classical composers, they wrote for operas and they wrote for which was the movies. They wrote for shows. They wrote for
that's what it was.
Yeah, they wrote for entertainment. Understand that these are the classical composers of our era. John Williams is going to be around for at least another couple hundred years. His music,
guarantee it.
Oh, for sure.
Freaking it. Yes, he is going to be the Bach, the Beethoven of our era.
I think so. I think he will be.
Yeah, that's a fair.
Like his music is too iconic for that not to be the case. So if this turns out to be true, John Williams, high five. Thank you for the memories. You're awesome.
Yeah, thanks. If you ever listen to this, thank you.
3 legitimate fans.
Yeah. And honest, I mean, I liked the last Star Wars movies, the last 3. I mean, I did. But honestly, his music was the best part of all 3 of them.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Yeah, hands down. Easy peasy. Yeah.
All right, moving into Chris Hemsworth's butt.
Rephrase that.
Nope. Moving on to Chris Hemsworth's butt.
That's a lateral move.
Josh, I want you to talk about this one because you were very excited about this.
Well, no, it's okay. First off, overselling the excitement there a little bit. I
think it's accurate.
To me, I think it's hilarious just because this is news. Like this is, and it wasn't just in one spot. I saw it all over Facebook, all over Instagram. I think it was on CNN. Like, anyway,
IGN reported it. Yeah.
Yeah. Point is, it's a little twofer real quick. Most people have seen the Thor trailer, and we know that when Russell Crowe's, I'm assuming, amazing Zeus, disrobes Thor to see who he really is, he, quote, flicks too hard and blows him naked. In the trailer, it's blurred. It's a mosaic, right?
Yeah.
They censor it. They wanted to make it very clear that in the theatrical film, it will not be censored, and you will see full-on Hemsworth from the backside. And so that was news. And then as soon as that became news, Chris Hemsworth came out and just wanted to let everyone know this is something he's been working towards for like 10 years. And he's very, very, very excited that you get to partake in his buttocks. And that he made it as just succulent as possible.
I was telling
and again,
you guys,
to me, it's just cracking me up just because this is news. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like it's hilarious, it's awesome. I'm sure it'll be a blast, but it's just
I was telling you guys off podcast that, you know what, if I had a figure like his, I'd want to shop my butt too.
Like let's be real. This guy has put a ton of effort into being incredibly physically fit, literally God worthy. If you got it, flaunt it, man. Go live your best life. Don't
Jason,
let your dreams be dreams.
I noticed that you are surprisingly, actually not surprisingly, quiet during this little segment.
He doesn't know what to say.
I don't know. There's so many thoughts that are going through my head about just ramifications of an advertisement campaign focusing on someone's bare butt.
Is this the first butt in the MCU?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is actually the first instance of nudity in the MCU.
think we got really close to like the Hulk's butt.
I mean, yeah, that's always...
in Ragnarok. So now I guess we're continuing a trend for Thor. I don't know.
We saw some Hulk hip in Thor.
Yeah, 3. We got really close. But I was thinking, it's I guess when the actor is on board, when using their body
Sure.
As part of a campaign, you know, as part of the advertisement, it's I guess it's fine. But I was also thinking, like, what if this was reversed, you know, for a woman?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, you know, it's like, at what point is it fun and enjoyable and everybody's okay? And at what point is it just like, we're focusing on the wrong things here? I don't know. Like, these are just all the different thoughts that are going through my head. Like I think the whole thing is hilarious and it's fun and it's funny, but I was also like, well, what if this was reversed? What if this wasn't okay with the actor or the actress and they went with this? I just don't know. It's like it's a very weird thing to focus on for advertising.
So for me, I think it's entirely what you said at the beginning. It's because he's on board with it and he's very, very excited about it.
Right. Yeah.
I think especially in this post Me Too society that we're in now, I don't think we're going to see much of people being sexualized or anything like that without them being
permission.
On board with it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like I could see exactly what you're talking about, like in the late 90s or something like that. Like that's,
oh heck, man, 30 years ago, easy.
Yeah. I mean, and there's histories of that. Both Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley have had instances, movie posters for their movies, they had their breasts enlarged for like no reason.
That is, right.
And so they both. So yeah, this has happened before,
and rightfully
and I think
pissy.
The difference, yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Rightfully, yeah.
I'm not criticizing that. Good, they should be pissed.
Yeah,
but no, I think it's because Hemsworth is on board, and he's excited, and you know what?
Yeah.
We're happy to share that excitement.
Yeah. So when I get quiet like that, it's just because there's a bunch of thoughts going through my head. It's not necessarily that I'm on board or not on board. It's just like there's some thoughts about that.
I didn't know I was opening a can of worms when
Sorry, buddy.
We talked about this butt for way too long. All right.
Apparently, it's newsworthy. So.
All right, I do want to quickly talk about these two tech things because we don't get to. We want to talk about tech.
We do.
Yeah.
We just never really get a chance to.
Well, and right around the time that we wanted to start talking about tech, the tech industry kind of took a nosedive because of all of the shortages and supply chain issues. And
right. That's a good point.
So good news on the horizon, though. Corey, take it away.
All right, we have two tech stories we want to talk about. The first, Jason, you've already touched on a little bit in our Geek Dive nostalgia cinema topic, but I do want to dive into it a little bit deeper real quick. The news that Amazon has announced that Alexa will be able to mimic the voice of deceased relatives, and assumably deceased anybody. Yeah. So just actually, I'm going to read this little intro of IGN's article real quick, just because it's a pretty good summary. So in news that is certainly set to raise some eyebrows, Amazon announced an experimental feature for its voice assistant, Alexa, that will let it imitate the voices of dead relatives. At Amazon's annual Mars conference, the company showed off a demo in which Alexa reads a bedtime story to a child using the voice of his dead grandmother. Amazon's head Alexa AI scientist, Rohit Prasad, I am assuming, said the feature is meant to highlight Alexa's human attributes, which have become more important in the times of the ongoing pandemic when so many of us have lost someone we love. When I first read this, I was like, that's pretty cool. It'd be, awesome to hear people that I haven't talked to in a long time. But then I started thinking about the ramifications of this. That's kind of intrusive. And even IGN points out, wasn't this a Black Mirror episode?
I mean, it feels like one.
I know, Jason, you've shared your thoughts a little bit on this already. I don't know what's happening. Is Amazon going too far?
So to me, it's worth pointing out this is a beta test feature. Yeah. This is not something that has been widely rolled out. I don't know. From a technology enthusiast standpoint, I appreciate it for what it is. Like that's cool. Voice synthesization, that's a word. Mm-hmm.
Sure, we'll go with it.
Has gotten really big over the last few years. Again, looking at Star Wars, young Luke Skywalker sounds mostly like young Luke Skywalker. Darth Vader in Obi-Wan, we're all thinking has been tweaked somehow. I think mostly to avoid James Earl Jones not sounding 90.
Yeah.
So I mean, like there are decent usages. Val Kilmer getting to speak in
Oh, yeah.
In Maverick.
Yeah.
So like there are uses for it, but in every single one of those instances, it was with the permission of the person it was emulating. None of these folks were dead.
And they were actively involved too.
So again, to me, I mean, we are approaching a Black Mirror thing. It's just because we can, should we? And technology is reaching the point where I think ethics are becoming a lot more important. So I don't know. Like I said, I appreciate it for what it is. Kind of creeps me out. I don't know if I'll use it, but I think it's neat.
When I worked at Verizon, I worked in the call center, and one of the biggest, not biggest, but one of the saddest instances I would run into, people would be crying. They call crying because they somehow lost their last voicemail from their parent.
Yeah.
It was devastating. Yeah. And we could not recover it.
Yeah, it's just gone. I'm sorry.
It's gone, and I get the importance of having that kind of memory, like being able to listen to somebody again. Mm-hmm. But that kind of memory is also static. Right. It is their last message. It is their last thing, their last conversation, or last. When you introduce that voice as something that can be perpetuated beyond their death, I think, like you were mentioning, Josh, it opens up a real ethical dilemma, and even a psychological dilemma. Will that inhibit our ability to move forward? Because if you can have some sort of artificial conversation with your dead father, or your dead child, or your dead mother, what does that do with your ability to move on from that point in your life and continue your own life?
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, is it a healthy coping mechanism for moving on from it?
Could this technology be used from a therapeutic standpoint?
Exactly.
What if, as a psychologist, you took that final recording, used this new technology, and they got a message from their loved one telling them it's time to move on?
Right. Something very similar to Iron Man, Tony Stark's
exactly.
Parf.
Yeah.
And his ability to say what he wanted to say to his parents the last time that he saw them.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. Like it's I'm thrilled that this technology exists. I'm concerned with how we're going to use it, and I think it should be used appropriately.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Again, ethics.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah. Josh was right.
I didn't say it that time.
All right. That got a little morbid, but I appreciated where that went. So let's actually change the topic to something a little bit happier.
Yes.
Graphic card prices are finally coming down.
Graphics cards are available.
Yeah, that's the first.
We skipped the first step. We buried the lead.
Graphics cards have notoriously been super expensive for the past, 5-ish years.
Yeah.
Like a lot more expensive than they had been previously. Data miners and cryptocurrency people were at first to blame, but since then it's kind of moved into the whole chip shortage that has been to blame for everything. So it's just kind of been a roller coaster of a boulder down a hill. Just problems keep stacking up for graphics cards. But according to a report by Digital Trends, the prices of both AMD and NVIDIA graphics cards are on their way down. Newer cards are becoming notably cheaper, with NVIDIA's RTX 3090 Ti now at 16% under MSRP and AMD's RX 6090 or 6950 XT at 4% below MSRP.
Is there any pointed reason for this? Like, are the materials now cheaper? Are they using different materials? Is the demand just dying down?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I know that Intel announced that they were going to different sources to source their chips.
Okay.
And a lot of retailers have kind of capped how you can buy graphics cards. So it's a lot harder to actually buy graphics cards in bulk now. So people were like
100%.
Like Josh,
know. Yeah, like y'all know that I work for the yellow tag. it's very difficult for you to game the system now.
Cool.
You have to give us your account information to purchase one, and as soon as we see that you've purchased one before, you don't get another one.
Wow.
So I mean, it's just the system has gotten better, the materials have gotten more available, they've changed what they're doing, and it's another one worth noting. A lot of these graphics cards companies have made it more difficult to use their cards for mining, because that was the initial thing starting like 4 years ago, like pre-COVID. You couldn't get these, and it had nothing to do with availability. It was that these Bitcoin miners and cryptocurrency miners were buying these in bulk because they're building mega rigs that could harvest a decent amount of money. And so you could never get one because all 50 were bought by Joe Blow, who's trying to be the next digital billionaire.
Yeah, clearly was not.
It's not what they were meant for.
Right. Exactly.
And so NVIDIA, I think, was one of the folks who kind of led the charge on that. From a software level, as soon as the chips start to realize that's kind of what you're doing with it, they become a little less efficient.
That's funny.
Interesting. That's kind of cool.
So
I like that.
So I mean, it's neat. I don't know if it's as big a deal as some of them kind of try to make it say it was, as far as what they've done to improve that. But yeah, like we have them at work. Like you can come get one. I think I might buy one. I don't know.
So yeah, good news for computer gamers and enthusiasts alike. Our prices in the midst of inflation, at least graphics card prices are going down. So woo, it's a win.
Woot.
It's cheaper than ever before to escape reality.
Let's get into our reviews. As another reminder, if you're new to this segment of our show, this is a full spoiler section of our show. We will be talking...
We don't hold back.
We don't hold back. We will be talking about story, things, and all sorts of stuff in regards to the entire series of Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 8. Which one do you guys want to start with?
Either is fine.
Either's fine. I agree.
Okay.
Come on, moderator.
let's start with Obi-Wan. So we have just gotten our 6th and final episode of what is currently the only season of Obi-Wan Kenobi. How are we feeling about it? Because I came away with mixed feelings.
I was going to say
it was not the show that I thought we were going to get.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. The last episode really was a banger. Like it was good. There were some narrative missteps, I think. The biggest one to me was I feel like we got to the end of the series and they didn't know what to do with the third sister.
Yeah. I was thinking that as I was watching. I was like, so
yeah, like,
why is she still here?
Like I actually had to go back and watch the end of the previous episode to make sure I hadn't just missed something. Because she was
going to talk about that because
like we went
why was she so fixated on Luke?
So I have a lot of questions. So like we went from Left for Dead, I assumed grievously injured.
Yeah.
Right.
To on a base with no other ships. To now we're on Tatooine. We don't seem to be really injured in any form or fashion. And we're hunting Luke, which I didn't know you knew about.
Well, she did.
She saw the hologram that
that's right.
Obi-Wan dropped.
Yeah.
So that's fair. So that resolves 1 out of 3 of my fairly large issues with this.
I don't understand why she cared about Luke.
Oh, well, I know. Oh, they told you. I mean, the reason was whatever, but the reason is that her whole storyline of wanting to get back at Darth Vader. And
sense.
So now she knows where his children are, or his child is, and wants to get back at him. And like, all right, I'm going to take out, here's my ability to take out my revenge on a youngling,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But see, also to me,
but it was so weak.
That raises continuity questions. Luke never talked about the time he was hunted by a Sith Lord. when he's staring down the barrel of a lightsaber, talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Because he was fully aware of what was happening. It's like he would have remembered that.
I don't know. Maybe that bump to the head was a little harder than we thought, and he just doesn't remember it. I don't know. This is weak sauce, Lucasfilm. Weak sauce.
Yeah. There was a lot that happened when you just got the impression in the original Star Wars trilogy that Ben Kenobi was just kind of not there until the movie.
So I get
and
it.
He's
like,
very much present.
Yeah, like Luke is 10-ish years old, and I think he's supposed to be, 18 or 19 when Star Wars starts?
Yeah.
I remember being 10 pretty well.
I do, yeah.
So, I
remember me being 10, not you being 10.
Yeah.
But
it's whatever. But, so, I don't know. I feel like that sequence may have caused more problems than it fixed.
But I think that sequence is really indicative of the problem of the entire series.
There wasn't much thought put into it.
Right.
Yeah.
They already had like a weird scrunch continuity that they had to worry about. There was only 20 years between episode 3 and 4, which didn't make sense if you looked at how old Obi-Wan was at the end of 3 and the beginning of 4. That didn't make sense. There should have been at least 30, maybe 40 years.
But
anyway,
the kids would have been too old. So.
Right. But they didn't think about episode 3 and anyway. So, having said all that,
the age thing I can overlook because it is a different actor, so it's whatever. But like this is creating continuity problems, though. Like from a narrative standpoint, if you remove actors entirely, like this is kind of an issue. Like to me, it would have been much more effective to episode 5 is the last time you saw the third sister. Maybe we'll see her again in another property. Maybe that's a story we'll get to explore later. Instead of this just forced redemption arc.
Yeah, it felt weird that the big epic battle between Vader and Obi-Wan was not the final thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why was third sister like what the episode ended on?
Yeah.
Like, why was Vader not the big conclusion of the episode?
Yeah. The part that we assumed they were going to be focusing on was good. Everything that involved Obi-Wan and Vader was great. But it's kind of like we said the last episode. I feel like they had that idea and wanted to make that show, but had no idea what to do with the rest of it narratively.
Yeah.
No idea how they ended up together. No idea how they were going to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they had an idea for a really great fight, and they needed to build a series around that.
Let's talk about a couple of positive things. So I want to call out the old school Star Destroyer chase. Like, it looked like it was a Star Destroyer straight out of episode 4. Like, it was kind of like not high def looking. Like, it was very
It looked like a model.
Graphics.
Yeah. It looked like a model.
Like,
and
I
mean that in a good
awesome
way.
Callback.
Yeah. No, by comparison, it made Obi-Wan's little fighter, or not even a fighter, like a little transport ship or whatever.
Cargo ship or whatever.
Yeah. Look zippy and fake. So, it
was awesome. I liked it. I loved that.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought the final conversation between Obi-Wan and
so after
Anakin,
their big lightsaber battle,
after he blows half the helmet off, right?
That
was moving. That was good, and I was like, "All right, Hayden, okay, you've no longer wooden. Okay, you did good. You did good there."
Yeah.
Did you notice the visual effect that happened during that scene when he was kind of like Anakin?
Mm-hmm.
The lightsaber hue of the light was blue. Then when he went like, Anakin is dead, I'm Darth Vader now, it went red.
Yeah.
I did not notice that. I did notice the colors on the different characters, blue and red. I did not catch the blue on Anakin. I'll have to go back and watch that.
Yeah,
but
that was
so visually
one.
That was pleasing then. But definitely the acting. Like, I teared up with that. I did.
Yeah. It was very cathartic for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It was.
To hear that it was not his fault.
Yeah.
So that was
so
good.
For me, that was the best part of the entire series right there.
Yeah. Agreed.
By far.
But the rest of the ultimately...
See, and that's what I'm saying.
I mean, the episode was like 50-50 for me.
Yeah, you could tell that was the part of the show that they had planned out. You know what I mean? Like, that was the part that they actually wanted to tell. I don't know. I almost would have rather this been like a 3-episode miniseries.
I'm so glad you said that. So that's actually been my biggest complaint, is that it felt like they had a story, but they didn't know how to fill up 6 episodes, which actually explains why this series, of all these series we've been watching recently, has been so much shorter compared to like the 9-episode series and the 12-episode series we've been watching. Yeah. It was only 6 episodes, but even then it still felt like they didn't have enough story to fill all 6 episodes.
Like they were stretching it. Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would have been much better as a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah. 2.5-hour movie or like a 3-episode miniseries. Like, whichever you want to do.
I think that they could have done more with Qui-Gon. honestly.
Yeah, so let's call that
to
out real quick. So
Yeah.
we had a Qui-Gon cameo. Like, it had
Which
to
was
happen.
pleasing.
Like, if they did
it was
not
not
do it,
surprising.
I was going to say, if they hadn't done it, I would have flipped a table.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was a very quick thing, but it was nice to finally see him again.
But I think if we had seen like master learner banter between the two of them throughout the series,
That would have been fun.
I think that would have been better.
Yeah.
Honestly, like we didn't need the reveal because we all kind of expected, based off of episode 3, that he was going to learn how to talk to Qui-Gon. Like that was the
always the assumption. Yeah.
Right. And so to have that dynamic and a way to carry on the narration of the story by having conversations with Qui-Gon, I think that could have been a fun exploration.
Yeah.
Of that relationship. And I think that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying a couple episodes ago, how it feels like it was okay to do an Obi-Wan story, but this is just not the story that they needed to tell. And so if they had done a new story where Qui-Gon was more involved, it would have, or even anything else, would have done a lot better than this.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like they had 2 or 3 decent but half-baked ideas.
Yeah.
So I would have watched a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi avoiding prosecution and persecution. That would have been interesting. Obi-Wan being hunted for an entire series. That could actually probably be pretty thrilling, especially if you did it as a thriller. Right?
Make it like a Bourne Identity type thing.
Like make the focus him being on the run. Yeah.
Right.
Obi-Wan Kenobi being a hermit and being forced to help with the kids in a very active way that could endanger him. That's an interesting show. If you did it fully about that.
So pretty much anything else.
Yeah. So like
what we got.
Well, see, that's my point though. They kind of touched on both of those ideas, but never really committed to either of them. And so it ended up just being this weird mess that ultimately led to probably the best fight scene in the series. But just getting there was such a half-baked thing. Like, if I have someone who wants to know if they should watch the show, I'd probably say watch the last 2 episodes. You'll be good.
I would say listen to our podcast and you'll get the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Ewan McGregor or Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Ian.
Fantastic. I enjoyed his performance. I enjoyed seeing him as Obi-Wan.
He's always a
Hayden
blast.
Christensen carried off Darth Vader's presence excellently. Bringing back James Earl Jones, whether modulated or not, I still enjoyed knowing that, and that really had and the fights between Obi-Wan and Darth was great.
All the pieces were there.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't put them together correctly.
Yeah, the execution was off.
Yeah. It was like somebody said, "Ooh, here's a great looking puzzle," and they dumped it on the table and left it there.
Yeah.
They didn't put the pieces together.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I see.
Before we move into reviews, would you guys want to see more of this show? Do you want to see more?
See, that's what I was
going
to ask. If they announced a season 2, would you be excited?
I would watch it. I don't know if I'd be excited. I'd be afraid it's more of this.
Yeah. So I asked because Kathleen Kennedy has come out and said in an interview with Entertainment Tonight that they're open to doing another season if there is enough engagement for one. And what I took away from that is, they'll just keep churning out these things, even if there's no story there.
Yeah.
For money.
Yeah. If you had told me,
I don't know.
If you had told me that before I watched the season that they put out, I would have been excited.
Yeah. It just seems like they're just trying to make things up to see how much they can get out of these characters.
Now it's kind of like, is it going to be good?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But anyway, so let's move into reviews and we can talk about overall final thoughts as we do this. So our scores, currently Obi-Wan Kenobi is sitting at a 3.92 across all of us. I'm sitting at a 4. Josh, you're at a 4. Jason, you're slightly lower at a 3.75. So who wants to go first and get their final thoughts and scores on Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I'll do it. Honestly, I want to give it a 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm giving it.
I think I'm going to be generous and give it a 4. But see, I just don't feel right with this. No, I'm going to have to do it. I got to do it. I'm going to give it a 3. Contrived plot points out of 5.
Oh, okay. Harsh. I like it. I'll go next. Honestly, I was doing the same thing. I was going back and forth between a 3 and a 4. But I after that last episode, yes, there were really awesome moments, but as a whole, I'm just like, I feel like I didn't really take anything away from it. It was not really...
The payoff was not big enough to erase the deficits.
Yeah, it's bad when you're watching a show and you're just like, yes, I love these characters, but I don't love them in this scenario. Like, this is just not... I don't know. Mm-hmm. I wanted so much more from this. So I think after talking with you guys, I will dump it down to a 3. Jason?
Same. Yeah, it's really funny. This goes back to our nostalgia discussion. It's like we all have a perceived idea of what we want because we're familiar with these characters. Mm-hmm. And of course that's why this has been made, is because it's a continuing story. But at the same time, it's like we have an expectation, and
you can't phone it in.
We didn't
Yeah, just because I'm nostalgic for it doesn't mean you can phone it in.
Exactly.
And we're going back and think about all the episodes, like there were some really awesome things about the show. Like Leia, the little girl that plays Leia, she was awesome. She stole the show in every scene she was in.
Yeah, just adorable.
Like especially the first episode, just seeing where Obi-Wan was at in life after his entire thing fell apart. Like that was awesome to see him like down in the dumps.
It started so great.
Yeah. And the big battles, like the big Sith battle between Third Sister and Vader in episode 5, like that was awesome for me.
It was awesome.
Pretty much anytime Vader as well was in a scene, it was awesome.
I was going to say, like, if this proves anything, it's that we need a Vader show.
Yeah. So, definitely lots of pros. Like it was not a bad show. Definitely lots of pros in this show. It was just...
Well, that's why it's a 3 out of 5 instead of a 1 out of 5. There were redeeming parts, but...
It's interesting that this is like the flip of Halo. Halo had a great storyline and then a poor payoff.
Yeah. This had a terrible storyline and
a decent payoff, but not big enough.
Yeah.
So for the limited series that it is right now, we're giving Obi-Wan Kenobi a 3 out of 5. Little shout out to X-Play there. Okay, so let's move into Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom? Elysian Kingdom? Mm-hmm. So this episode was about the Enterprise becoming stuck in a nebula that is home to an alien consciousness that traps the crew in a fairy tale.
I'm so excited to see what Jason thinks about this. Because I'll start by sharing my... So, this is probably my least favorite episode so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because of what it was, because what it was is very Star Trek. Like, very, very Star Trek.
Really?
Okay. Yes, it's very Star Trek, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way of putting it. This is something that has happened repeatedly on Star Trek, and it's usually a lot of fun. And this one was a lot of fun, too. I by no means thought it was bad, but even my dad at the end said, well, this was weird. So... So it's not what they did. It's kind of how they did it. I think this episode suffered severely from some pacing issues because normally when I watch this show, like phones down. So I was wandering on Facebook a little bit while this is going on. You know what I mean?
I did the exact same thing.
So yes. I mean, it was by no means bad.
So yeah, the episode was basically, aside from like the first 5 minutes or so, the entire episode was shrouded in a fairy tale. Like the ship was turned into a fairy tale setting. All the characters became fairy tale characters from the book that the Doctor was reading his daughter. Basically, the book came to life.
Yep.
And for a pro of the episode, there was a huge focus on the Doctor, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's great.
And we finally got a conclusion to the whole subplot of what he was dealing with his daughter.
That I did not find particularly emotionally satisfying. That is actually my biggest issue with what happened.
Okay. Jason, do you agree?
I didn't think about it a lot. I thought it was a clever way to close up the storyline. And it again, this particular Star Trek does a good job of subverting expectations. So the fact that they brought her back as an adult to let her father know that she was okay, I like that. Yeah, I mean, I liked that because my expectation was that they were going to come back at some point to find her or something. So they tidied up that storyline. Now, did I find that satisfying? I haven't thought about it that much because ultimately it wasn't like a big satisfying episode for me. So
to me, because this plot point dealt inherently with mortality and illness, and I wanted there to be a scientific conclusion to it.
Yeah.
And that, again, I'm not going to say that is a widespread shared emotion, but to me, I didn't hate that we resolved the plot line. I didn't hate that we had the fairy tale-ness. I hate that the fairy tale-ness is what solved this technological issue.
To carry that conversation a little further, though, is that anything,
and I get
science
and they were very,
so advanced,
they were very Star Trekian about that, but
I mean, it could just be an advanced science because we're out in a nebula in space. It's inherently going to be science, but it looks like magic to us. And yes, you're right. Yeah. The concept is that magic heals.
Yeah, and it's just so again, it's
the presentation. Yeah,
I'm by far this is the one I'm most critical of. I still had a lot of fun. It was a great episode. Anson Mount.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, yeah, hold on. So I hated this episode.
And I saw this coming.
So you did say Anson Mount, so I will start there. Like a huge positive of the episode was Anson Mount being prissy the entire time.
Right.
Like that was fantastic. Like every time he showed up,
amazing.
That was fun. That I just laughed out loud. So like with that, like the episode was definitely not horrible for me because Anson Mount was helping me through it.
Well, I think that's worth saying. Clearly, everyone was having a blast doing it.
Yeah,
like everyone was having fun.
But I hated the entire, just all of it. I will say I hate fairy tale, fable, fantasy type of things. Like that by itself just did not appeal to me. But also just
which you've mentioned before
was I hated that it felt like it was too far removed from being sciencey to it being kind of mystical and magic and stuff. It did not feel like Star Trek to me. But I guess from what you guys are saying, that is kind of a staple of old school Star Trek. Okay.
Yeah.
This is very much a Star Trek episode.
It reminded me a lot, honestly, of Supernatural, the TV shows. Like every season, there was like always one or two episodes where they got super goofy with the story of the episode.
Sure.
There were actually episodes where the monsters or the supernatural things that they were hunting were actually like fairy tale things. But in the context of Supernatural, the reason they were hunting these fairy tale things come to life made sense in the context of their show. To me, this fairy tale thing did not make sense in the context of Star Trek. Now, it's sounding to like you guys, it did make sense, but to me, it did not.
It did seem, there was some aspect of it which seemed out of place, yes. I think one of the things that I've noticed is that when there are episodes like this, you have an established crew. You have an established series.
See, and that's kind of how I felt. I felt like it was too early for this. Yeah.
Too early. Exactly. That is precisely what I'm saying. And there were also a couple plot points that were unresolved. Like when he had the experiment blow up in his face. Like literally,
this sort of
that
thing
is
starts.
often how, like something should have happened to it.
Yeah.
Like something should have happened to him that they focused on that explosion and he inhaled it.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be one of the reasons why he was not affected.
Yeah.
But it meant nothing. And I'm like, why was it even part of the plot then? Why was that even in there? So there were a couple misses on this one too, which we hadn't seen yet. Yeah, the story was I think the weak point. The acting
was great.
Was great. Everybody, like Joshua said, it was. I mean, they clearly had fun with this episode, and they were totally hamming up their roles, and it was fun. But yeah, the story was just a little weak, and I hated that it was on the Doctor's episode because I really like him.
Yeah, so let's use that to transition into scores. Who wants to go first? So currently the show as a whole is sitting at a 4.95, so near perfect. Jason, you are the lone dissenter. You are currently giving it a 4.86 across the board. So how are we feeling after this not great episode?
I'm going to give it a 4.25.
Higher than I thought.
Yeah, considerably higher than I thought.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I laughed out loud when stories do that.
That's good.
That brings it up for me.
I'm going to give it. Oh my gosh, I almost went down to a 2. 2 feels too harsh. I will give. Yeah,
whoa,
I will give it
really
3.
didn't like it.
I did not like this episode. I will give this episode a 3.
Okay.
What about you, Josh?
I'm torn. This is another one I'm bouncing between 3 and 4 a little bit. I'm going to say because I appreciate what the attempt was, and that I think it was just some technical issues that prevented it from being great. I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 spontaneous consciousnesses out of 5.
All right. So that actually does not dump the score down too much because, as a reminder, we're giving every single episode its own score, and then we're averaging everything together across the board to give us a score as a whole for the entire season. So after all those scores, we're all sitting a little bit below a 5 now, and that's giving us a 4.8 across the board for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 so far.
I think that's solid.
All right, boys. We are wrapping this episode up. This is probably going to be a long one. I'm probably not going to cut much from this one because I liked everything we were saying. So for our listeners, if this ends up being an hour and 45 minutes long, you're welcome.
It's worth it.
You're welcome.
This is for
In case
you.
The listeners are not aware. We try to make every episode an hour. It never works out. So, yeah.
Tell you what, if this one's extra,
Well, we have a lot to say.
if this one's extra long, no extra charge.
So coming up next week, we're actually done talking about Obi-Wan, obviously. So the only show we really have left to talk about on an ongoing basis next week is Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We will be talking about The Boys as a whole, the entire season 3, on July 12th. We'll also be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder on that same episode, the July 12th episode. So that's fun. We'll also be talking about the season 1 as a whole of Miss Marvel on our July 19th episode, episode number 16. And then, the week after that, we're going to be taking a week off. Summer break. Woo woo woo. So on July 26th, we will not be having an episode, but we will be back August 2nd to talk about, geeky things that are happening. So, yeah.
And just so all of you are aware, clearly, if Corey were to leave us, we would be lost. Corey is the taskmaster, agenda maker, and the moderator.
I want to see you guys do an episode about me.
I don't want to do that.
Be a dumpster fire.
And I will not edit it.
I was going to say, I wouldn't edit
Why-
it. It's like, this is what it
Why
sounds
do
like
you hate
raw.
us? We know what you do. You're amazing. You're the magic maker.
Should we put out one uncut episode?
Oh my god!
I think it's too soon. It's too soon.
Okay.
Don't do that to them.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for listening. Please continue to share this podcast. We would really appreciate it. We want more people listening.
We've been told that we seem like we know what we're doing, so maybe more people should know what we're doing.
And that illusion means everything to us.
Right.
All right, go do nerdy things. Enjoy your week. We'll be back next week.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.